moment, we're going to watch a video of one of the more enjoyable auditions of the American Idol TV talent show. The song was composed and performed by a 62-year-old man from Atlanta, Georgia, named Larry Platt. Neither the song nor the singer were particularly good. He was put through to the auditions by the screeners, probably because of entertainment value and maybe because the lyrics of the song resonate with us. Let's watch and see.
Pants on the ground, looking like a fool with your pants on the ground, with the gold in your mouth, hat turned sideways, pants hit the ground. Call yourself a cool cat, looking like a fool, walking downtown with your pants on the ground. Get it up. Hey, get your pants off the ground, looking like a fool, walking, talking with your pants on the ground. Get it up. Yeah. Hey, get your pants off the ground, looking like a fool with your pants on the ground, gold in the mouth, hat turned sideways, pants hit the ground. Call yourself a cool cat, looking like a fool, walking, talking with your pants on the ground. Boom.
Whoa.
Pants on the ground. Looking like a fool with your pants on the ground.
Now admit it, you have wanted to send that message, haven't you? That fad of males, mostly urban males, wearing their pants halfway down the legs was probably one of the most ridiculous fads we have seen come along in many years. How was that ever cool to look like you were wearing pants that were too big for you and it looked like you were too poor to be able to afford a belt? Occasionally, when I am in some larger city, I still see an urban male wearing his pants almost on the ground. They have to hold them up while they walk. It probably has cut down on police chases for, after all, who could run away from the scene of a crime with their pants falling down? Now, despite the lack of talent and the very simplistic lyrics, Mr. Platt's audition video went viral immediately. And a month later, he recorded that song, and it rose to number 46 on the Billboard Top 100 charts. It was performed on the Late Night Show and the Today Show and on The View and at the 2010 Grammy Awards. As unlikely as it was, Larry Platt became an overnight American Idol. In contemporary times, the term idol is seldom used in its traditional sense. Now it describes a performer who has risen to superstar status. We don't worship stone and wooden images in our culture, but we do worship other things. That's why we are in the midst of a sermon series entitled No Other Gods. This series will flesh out, will explore and examine and explain the first two of the 10 commandments. Let's read those 2 commandments again as we re-enter this series of sermons after a break of a couple of weeks. In Exodus chapter 20, verses 3 through 6. Do we have that? There we go. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself an image in the form of anything in heaven above or on the earth beneath or in the waters below. You shall not bow down to them or worship them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, punishing the children for the sin of their parents to the 3rd and the 4th generation of those who hate me, but showing love to 1,000 generations of those who love me and keep my commandments. Now let's review the first 4 commandments. They are the most important of the 10. Have no other gods before me. Do not bow down to or create an idol. Do not take the Lord's name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. These are the 4 most important because they deal with our relationship with God, and the others with our relationship with human beings. And so God sets the tone in these first 4 commandments for the rest of them. We are to honor him. Now, as we take a look at those 4, let's do a little self-examination. I don't want a show of hands, or I don't want verbal response, but just think in your mind, which of those do you feel that you have broken the least? Most of us would say commandment number 2. We have never created or bowed down to an idol. But I would like for you to consider these facts. First of all, let me say that while that might be our opinion, in his book entitled No Other Gods, Kyle Idleman suggests that second one is the one that we break the most often. Few of us would agree with that, right? We would say that commandment is obsolete, after all, except in some remote jungle or some third world nation. No one bows down before images anymore. We are far too enlightened for that, and idolatry is dead. But let's consider a few of these facts. First of all, idolatry is the sin most addressed in the Bible. It is mentioned in every book of the Bible, including every New Testament book, because it is considered by God to be a major problem of mankind. Second fact, both Jesus and Paul indicated that idolatry is not limited to worshiping an image. It can be anything we put before God. Paul wrote that greed is idolatry. Jesus said that money can be an idol for us. Therefore, idolatry is a sin that many are guilty of. And thirdly, idolatry was one of only 4 sins punishable by death in God's Old Testament law. God takes idolatry seriously. And so as we think about this commandment, do not bow before an image, do not worship an idol. Let's discuss what that really means. Let's discuss, first of all, what a God is. It is in reality anything that we worship, whatever we put before or in equal consideration to God, whatever we serve or sacrifice to. A God can be anything that we give our devotion or our priority to, over or to or equal to God. And contemporary gods don't look like the gods of the ancient past. Our contemporary gods don't bear Greek or Roman or Canaanite names. Kyle Idleman wrote, they take a form so ordinary that few of us recognize them as gods. He suggested that our kneeling and bowing before these gods is done in our hearts and with our time. In other words, those things and those activities that we most sacrifice for, they are our gods. Those things, those activities that we most dedicate ourselves to or we pursue the most enthusiastically, those are our gods. They never start out as gods. They usually begin as goals and aspirations or hopes and dreams. But in order to gain success at them, we often have to live for them. We spend our time on them. We sacrifice for them, a little at first, and then more, and then maybe too much. And soon those goals turned gods force us to make a decision. Do I choose what God says about this, or what my desires say? And if we choose any voice but God's, we make our goal our new God. Herman Schlossberg, in his book entitled Idols for Destruction, wrote, anyone with a hierarchy of values places something at its apex. Whatever it is, that is the God he serves. And we will. We will serve something or someone. Joshua led the Israelite people into the promised land. They had already toyed with idolatry before that. You remember the incident of the golden calf, right? Worshiping that calf that they made out of their golden jewelry. Joshua knew that these people would continue to struggle with idolatry. And so, just before he passed away, after the promised land had been conquered, he called the nation of Israel to himself, and he called on them to reject all other gods. These were his words to them, as recorded in Joshua 24, verses 14 and 15. Now fear the Lord and serve him with all faithfulness. Throw away the gods your ancestors worshipped beyond the Euphrates River and in Egypt, and serve the Lord. But if serving the Lord seems undesirable to you, then choose for yourselves this day whom you will serve, whether the gods your ancestors served beyond the Euphrates, or the gods of the Amorites in whose land you are living. But as for me and my household, we will serve the Lord. In a sense, Joshua was giving them a multiple choice, wasn't he? Do you remember those multiple choice tests you took when you were in school? Those were the best tests, weren't they? Because the answer was already there somewhere. You didn't have to pull it out of the dark recesses of your memory if you could locate it. It was right there in print in front of you. You just had to figure out which answer it was. And so when Joshua posed this question before them, who will you serve? He gave them a multiple choice, as we see. Will it be A, the gods of your past? Will it be B, the gods of your culture? Or will it be C, the one true God? By the way, C is the correct answer, if you were wondering. His question to his people, some 3,000 years ago, is still relevant to us. This is really our test question. Whom will you serve? Will you serve the gods he listed as a possibility in answer A, the gods of our past, the gods of our past enslavement? Israel lived in captivity in Egypt for 400 years, and their faith was influenced by that experience. And so in a time of uncertainty, when they were camped at Mount Sinai and Moses was up on the mountain too long, they thought, getting the laws and the commandments of God, they wondered, where is Moses? Why isn't he coming back? Has he led us out here into the wilderness to die on our own? And so they resorted to the God of their enslavement. They fashioned that golden calf and they said, "Here, O Israel, is your new God. We will follow him." I don't know where they thought he was going to lead them, but that's what they decided to do. And that is a problem with many of us today. In a time of uncertainty or fear or stress or pain, we return to old habits we thought we'd left behind, like anger and lust, chemical dependency, and pride, the gods of our enslavement. You see, the problem is that not that we don't follow Jesus. The problem is that we are still influenced by the old gods, just like the Israelites were. Or maybe we will choose the answer that Joshua offered in letter B, the gods of our culture. Those were the most difficult gods for Israel to resist. Whatever culture they were a part of, or whatever culture they even lived near, they tended to gravitate towards the gods of those cultures. That happened for century after century, for over a millennia. They wanted to fit in with those around them. They were enticed by what others valued. They were attracted to the success they saw in the lives of their pagan neighbors, and they attributed that success to the pagan gods that they worshiped, and so they turned to them as well. And we struggle with contemporary gods for the same reasons. We strive for success, and we sacrifice on the altar of time and family. We desire achievement, and we sacrifice on the altar of opportunity. We want acceptance, and so we sacrifice on the altar of popular choice. We lust for wealth, and we might sacrifice on the altar of honesty to get it. J.B. Phillips offered this paraphrase of Romans 12:2. Don't let the world around you squeeze you into its own mold. Good advice. The gods of our culture might look attractive, but they will not save us. Only the Creator God can do that. That's why the answer that Joshua offered in letter C was the correct one. The one true God. Let's go back to Joshua 24:14 again. Fear the Lord and serve him with all faithfulness. Throw away the gods your ancestors worshipped and serve the Lord. Joshua's audience knew the obvious answer when he gave them that multiple choice quiz. And so they responded to him with these words in verses 16 through 18 of that chapter. Then the people answered, far be it from us to forsake the Lord and serve other gods. It was the Lord our God himself who brought us and our parents up out of Egypt from the land of slavery and performed those great signs before our eyes. He protected us on our entire journey and among all the nations through which we traveled. And the Lord drove out before us all the nations, including the Amorites who lived in the land. We too will serve the Lord because he is our God. They chose wisely. But Joshua knew they were caught up in the emotion of the moment. And he knew that the choice would not always be so easy for them to make. And so he warned them, God is jealous. He is holy and righteous. And he will judge if you turn away from him. And Joshua was right to be concerned about his people. For we read this about them in Judges 2, verses 8 through 11. Joshua, son of Nun, the servant of the Lord, died at the age of 110. And they buried him in the land of his inheritance. After that whole generation had been gathered up to their ancestors, another generation grew up who neither knew the Lord nor what he had done for Israel. Then the Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord and served the Baals. Just 2 chapters later, after they had made that great public commitment to follow only God, just 2 chapters later, they turned away from him. Joshua knew that he needed to warn the people of the consequences because he knew human nature. He knew that the human heart wavers in its commitment. We all have some level of spiritual ADD. Our attention wanders. Our loyalty shifts. Our allegiances change. And we are attracted by some brighter offer. We might feel a strong commitment to God in a highly charged moment and then feel something else more strongly when that moment passes. You may have a strong commitment to Christ and his church now, but beware, because it only takes 2 chapters, maybe 2 years, maybe 2 months, maybe in 2 weeks, another God might look more appealing to you. Joshua's message for people who turned away from God was the same that Moses gave his people when he first read to them the 10 Commandments. He said, first of all, God is jealous. That is, he wants to be your only. Husbands, try this. Try telling your wife that you love many women, but she is your favorite. Call me from your hospital room and let me know how that worked out for you. That same jealous anger that she might hear if she heard a statement, or she might feel if she heard a statement like that, is the same jealous anger that God feels when we put something else in his place. He wants to be our only. For that reason, the Old Testament prophets sometimes called idolatry adultery. It was spiritual adultery. It was unfaithfulness to God. And so Joshua and Moses warned, God is jealous. And they also warned that God is righteous. He is holy, and he will punish such unfaithfulness. Let's read that again in the second commandment in Exodus 20, verse 5. I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, punishing the children for the sin of their parents to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me. That sounds harsh, doesn't it? But what it's teaching us is that what we worship will have a multi-generational effect on our family. And it does. Our children will adopt the values that we choose for ourselves, and their children will likely adopt those values too. And so each generation might suffer the consequences of being taught to serve and worship the wrong gods. The God of success, or the God of money, or the God of achievement, or the God of pleasure. But in the midst of that warning, God offered a great promise to us. And that not only is he a jealous God and a righteous and holy God who will punish, he is a God of grace. Let's go back to that second commandment one more time and read those words in verse 6. But showing love to 1,000 generations of those who love me and keep my commandments. What we read here is God's promise that his mercy and love far exceed his desire for judgment. God's grace rules. That's why the Apostle Paul wrote these words in Romans 5:20. Where sin increased, grace increased all the more. And it's in that grace that God calls to us. Reject all other gods. Smash your idols and come to me.